Are you exhausted from fighting the same battles over and over in your marriage? What if you could stop the cycle and actually start winning together? Today we are breaking down how to pick your battles wisely, let go of what doesn't matter, and build a home that feels like a peaceful sanctuary God designed it to be. Stay with us.
Welcome to Bringing Hope Home. We're Bryce and Colette Schaffer, and we're on a mission to bring God's hope, healing, and practical strategies right into your living room.
Welcome to another week of Bringing Hope Home. Today we're talking about fighting.
Fight.
But more importantly, how to pick your battles maybe so you don't end up fighting over everything.
That would help.
Yeah. Because there's some things that are
Yeah, we gotta learn how to deal with conflict a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just got done last month talking about ghosting. You know, a lot of people just give the silent treatment because they don't want to fight, or they know if they do fight, it'll just grow worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, that's great and wonderful, but it's not solving anything, especially if you're doing it with your spouse. So you're ghosting your spouse, you're just exacerbating it, and it's just going to get worse, and you're not going to deal with it properly. So, yeah, we want to talk about how to deal with your conflicts, and maybe, you know, just know that you don't have to live in drama. You don't have to live in conflict all the time, especially with your family and your spouse. That is not God's design. A home is supposed to be peaceful. It's supposed to be a sanctuary, not one of contention. And so we want to get to that.
I was reading a John Maxwell book, and I'm not going to get the quote right, but it was something to that effect that everybody goes through the same stuff. Maybe not exactly the same, but we all go through stuff.
Right.
But why do some people it hits harder than others? And it's a lot of that. Sometimes we choose to kind of fall into the drama of it all instead of kind of rising above it and having a different attitude that, yeah, this is just life and we go through it, you know, instead of being sucked into.
Yeah, and God knows that, you know, it's two people in a family, and then there's sometimes teenagers, and we'll get to that in another podcast, how to deal with your teenagers in conflict with them. So that stay tuned for that one. But, you know, God knows these things. So he has plans of action on helping you get through those. And again, not every battle needs to be a fight. And not every offense deserves a reaction. And you don't have to prove that you're right all the time.
You don't?
You don't, especially when it comes to your spouse. Because again, if you're proving your point, what you're doing is you're putting the other one down. I've said that a lot in marriage enrichment and marriage counseling. If you both ain't winning, you ain't winning.
Nobody's winning.
Nobody's winning.
Yeah.
And so why do we have, and us guys, we're really good at wanting to keep score and trying to make sure we win. Well, you don't win unless you both win. And so that's what we want to talk about today. You know, I think a couple verses just to foundationally, you know, Proverbs 19:11 says, good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is to his glory to overlook an offense. And the one I use in marriage enrichment is James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Yeah.
And that's the important there. Slow to speak, slow to become angry. You would save a lot of headache, a lot of fights if you were just slow to speak.
Probably not just in the marriage, in other places.
Yeah, in other places too. Just being slow to speak. Let things settle a little bit.
The pause is good.
Yeah, the pause just kind of helps you. In fact, we had a guest minister in, and he said when he was a pastor, he and his wife, they had a rule that after church on Sunday, they wouldn't talk about anything about church until 24 hours. Because a lot of things, you know, when you're tired or when you're, you know, you might think something is a bigger deal than it is, or whatever, but they gave themselves that 24-hour rule. And I think that's good just in life sometimes, that we just kind of sit with it and not be so reactive.
Right.
There's a lot of things that would just take care of itself.
Yep.
And not saying ignore everything, but there are some things that don't need full attention.
So we want to realize why are we fighting some of these battles that we shouldn't be fighting? Why are we doing that? Or why are we just going to explosions? And one of it is because we're emotionally exhausted people. Even if you're sitting there surfing the web in the social media, you are actually exhausting your brain. Studies have shown that. You can't refute the fact that you're actually making yourself more exhausted rather than recharging your batteries when sitting there on your phone.
Yeah.
And we've done podcasts like that too. So, we're emotionally exhausted. So the first thing you got to do, get some better sleep. Try to take your stress levels down in every area of your life. Don't always wait till the last minute on things. That would help. Plan a little bit better. Planning is never bad. You can still be whimsical and carefree and go with the flow in a plan. You really, really can. And case in point, when I minister, I have a great big plan, and it'll go for sometimes weeks, the plan. But then in that plan, there's time we just go on tangents and we do things differently. So, this first thought process is just get emotionally stable yourself. And not try to, again, drum up all those things. We're not living in the soap opera life. We are living in real life. These aren't as the stomach churns, as they say.
Well, we talked about debt last week. And really, if you're emotionally in debt, so if you're just tired and you're just short, with your responses, you're not thinking right. If you're not sleeping, you're not thinking right. All of those things go into being emotionally exhausted. And so. Yeah.
Yep. And then another one is, again, I kind of brought up social media. They are going to drain you. Don't spend your time online with the trolls of social media and become one of the trolls of trying to get back at somebody or make your point. Most people that post on social media already have their mind up, and there is really no way that you're going to change their mind.
No.
Because that's not what they're after. They're after making their point known. And so you're not going to do much different for them. And if you are, it's probably somebody close to you and you have a different kind of relationship with them. So don't spend your time. Again, don't spend your time in the weeds, in your life. Yeah. So not good. And again, if you have to, I have to say it, then that's being prideful. And you are becoming the God of that person or that situation. You don't have to do anything. And I'm in a group right now, a small group that I have to deal with different people. And there's two people in that group that are very domineering. And so I just choose to sit back and I'll let what I think and what I know kind of come out later. I don't have to go back and forth and banter, even if I don't agree. So it can wait for another time. And again, that little bit of time situation. So the next thought on all this is, how do you pick your battles, right? So how do you choose which ones to fight and which ones not to fight? Because there's this thought of what's wise in doing it, which ones should we let go, and then there's another segment of which ones do I take on. And that's kind of like in a classroom as a teacher. We've both been teachers. There are battles that we pick and there's battles that we kind of let go. and an experienced teacher, you kind of learn the ebb and flow of what matters and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. What's going to disrupt the rest of the class and the flow, or
and which one are you going to, it's just,
or do you have to deal with because it will upset the rest of the class and the flow?
Right. So how do you pick wisely, right? So you ask yourself first and foremost, and someone told me this a long time ago, so I'm sure you guys have all heard it out there as well, is will it matter in a week? Mm-hmm. Will it matter in a year from now? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is it really doesn't affect my relationship or the situation, or it doesn't matter a week from now, then I can probably not get so huffy about it. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time dramatizing and living in those what ifs and the yeah buts of conversation, and that's where we get fed. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I talk to different people and I find myself talking about the same thing every time we talk. And it's like, okay, well then that's what's feeding them, but we need to get out of those weeds sometimes because it's not worth it, and it's not going to make our relationship stronger or better.
Yeah.
So what is that? So, if I'm irritated, does that mean I have to say something? Especially to my spouse? No, it doesn't. Right?
Yeah. Or is it just a misunderstanding in their tone? There's times where you will say something and it's like, you are sounding kind of bitey. And you're like, well, I don't mean to sound bitey. It's like, well,
this has happened.
This happens quite often.
This happens. Yes, people.
Yep.
Yeah. Our job as Christians is to live peaceably. Jesus talks about that a lot. Now, that doesn't mean you roll over and let things dominate you. Understand that. Jesus was never dominated.
No. It's good to educate yourself and to have, the Bible says you need to be ready to give a response for your beliefs, for your stand. You do need to be ready for that. Not every platform is your platform to do that.
It's not your
and
place.
Not every time is your time to do it. With your spouse, they don't need to hear everything if it's, if you're harping on them or if it's whatever. It doesn't need to be every time. I don't know if I'm being clear on that. But.
No, I agree. You have to pick your battles, and that's what we're talking about today, and you got to pick your spots.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. Timing is everything, especially with arguments or especially with something that you don't agree with. Timing is huge.
Right. And then you have to ask the next question on all this. Again, first one was, will it matter in a week? Is it going to damage a peaceful relationship? And so but then the next one, is it going to damage the relationship? Am I needing to fight for the relationship? Is it impactful enough that if I say something or I don't say something, it's going to affect the relationship one way? It's going to start steering the relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to decide. Well, if it's steering it in a good direction, great. But if it's not, do I need to say something? Is it worth changing the relationship for? Is another way of saying it.
And we've said this before, and we will keep saying it. Go to God first. The Holy Spirit is your helper. And so He, in all of these relationship situations, ask Him. And He's going to give you the right timing. He might tell you, no, this is not the right time to say anything. Or He'll give you the strategy on how to say something if it's a difficult conversation. So include God. Don't just go off your own emotion. Definitely don't go off your own emotion. Seek Him and really get clear on that before you.
Yeah, and I think, and if you ever, before you talk to somebody, like you said, pray, and then separate the person and the issue. Again, you want to keep relationships. Mm-hmm. that no matter what, you're trying to keep a relationship, and you're not against people.
Right. Yeah. Ephesians 6 says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, meaning if there's a hard thing or a yuck in your relationship, usually there's something bigger at hand.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually, whether you believe in demons and angels and all of that, they are there and they are trying to wreak havoc in our homes.
There's influence there.
And we can let those things in by different things. That's a whole nother podcast. But so we don't wrestle against people. Relationship is the most important thing, to keep that intact. We don't want to damage.
Yeah, and with a relationship, you got to remember that they're God's children too, regardless of where their stance is. And so you need to speak love and grace to a person.
Yeah. No
love
personal attacks.
Right. Especially if it's a touchy issue. Another strategy is when to let go. Mm-hmm. Let it go.
Are you going to start singing?
Let it go. No, I'm not going to. I would lose listeners if I started singing. But, you do need to know when to just release it into God's hands. Mm-hmm. And then let him have it. Let him keep it and forgive. And not forget, but forgive and move on. Mm-hmm. Maybe put up a new boundary. Maybe change a strategy. But in all of that, letting it go because you're not changing the situation. I've done that.
And some things are just a difference in personalities on how someone deals with something. And it maybe really grates you because you're a type 1 personality.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if you're talking about the Enneagram, you're the 1.
I'm a 1, black and white.
Yeah, so 7s can really get to you.
Yeah, whoa. I think 2 through 9 can get to me. Oh, yeah, no.
But yeah, you have to learn to let them be them, right? Let you be you.
There's the book that you read, Let Them.
Yeah, Mel Robbins has a book called Let Them, and it's really good. It's not a Christian book, but has some really good
right.
points.
And so that let it go, release it, and give it back to God. Say, God, you are their Lord, not me. Mm-hmm. I don't need to fight this battle. This is not worth losing a friendship. This isn't worth hurting my marriage. And if you didn't see this situation come up before you got married, then God say, how do I navigate it? You are the Lord of this marriage. This is your covenant relationship. Help us navigate this situation. If not, let me release it and be done with it.
Yeah.
And we move on. So, and then that brings us to the next thought of all this is, what's the difference between your convictions and your preferences? Because that's huge. Mm-hmm. How I do something most of the time is preference. Mm-hmm. It just feels good and it seems right in our eyes. But that does not make it true for somebody else and should not grate you and get you to rise up in conflict against somebody. We see that in our grown children where they do stuff that we're like, I don't know about that. And so what we choose to say is that's their life, that's their preferences. And so you gotta learn what the difference is. So if it's then a conviction that comes from, in our case, it comes from the Bible. It comes from the belief that Christ has set forth for my life, for our marriage relationship, for our family. Now we can have a conversation. It doesn't have to be over a parenting style. Those we can all get. There's lots of different ways to get to the same end result. A good, solid, person grown up to be a good person in society. So you can get there lots of different ways.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. So, and not everything is just a spiritual battle either. Again, it's just a preference. I want to say that it's in my notes, and it's a good thing to remember. It's not just all I mean, you were just talking about angels and demons, and they're real and they do influence. And I am with that. I am wholeheartedly for that. But sometimes it's just your preference.
Yeah,
and
even, worship styles, parenting approaches, personality differences, traditions, all those things are usually based on our own bias, our own, how we were raised, things like that. So, and not to say that those things don't need to be talked about, because as a couple, you need to come together and be able to worship together. You need to parent together. So they are things that you need to talk about and get a plan in place.
Yeah. And so again, is it a conviction or is it your personality? And then that helps you guide how strongly you are going to take on that challenge. And so where do you go from there? Once you figure out if it's a conviction, if it's in you and that's what this is how I want to operate my life and our family's life, because we're talking about spouse conflict today in most general sense here, how would Jesus have dealt with it? Right? I mean, that's key to one of the neatest things is Jesus didn't waste time. He didn't waste his words. He didn't just stay in the weeds, as we've talked about already, on any of it. So, again, stay silent maybe a little bit, maybe choose to go to Scripture together, pray about it. It's just one of those things. What would Jesus do? WWJD. I had
back
that
the 90s.
Back in the 90s. I had that as a lanyard that I had my school keys on.
Yeah.
And I even wore it during coaching. And I did it not so everybody could see I was a Christian. I did it for me to remind myself I'm a Christian.
Yeah. Well, and Jesus was led by compassion. You see over and over in the Gospels that he was led by love. And that is what we should be led by and steered in, is compassion for especially our spouse. We're, like we've said, we're in this together. And so be compassionate towards them. And that love will come through.
Yeah. And God was all about restoration. Why did he send you? Again, look at Jesus. He was about restoration, and he was the one that made the first step to make sure the relationship could be mended. Doesn't mean everybody's going to get mended, because he died on the cross for all of us, and not all of us are saved. But he took the first step, took the first initial act of love, and showed the way. We need to do that with our spouses, especially. Be the first act, be the bigger person, choose love, choose peace, choose to let some things go, choose to forgive. And then when it comes to a good battle that you need to fight, then you can say why. And you're going to probably get a little bit farther then, because it's not every day, all the time, a constant drip of fight, like we started this podcast on. And that's what we want. So when you do need to have a battle, have a disagreement, it's not a battle, it's a disagreement, and we can come out winners together on the other side.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Okay. Well, a lot of good information again, like usual. So if this helped you, go ahead and, like and subscribe, share this with somebody that you think might need it. Maybe you need to send it to your spouse. Maybe you don't send it to your spouse.
Maybe not.
But we do appreciate your feedback, and you can comment on anything you'd like us to
please do
to talk about. You can email us at hello@schaefferministries.com and get that information there. So, all right. Well, thank you for being with us, and until next time, bring hope home to your life today.
Thank you for listening to Bringing Hope Home. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to strengthen your marriage, head to schaefferministries.com to take our free marriage quiz and check out our Marriage Builders course. See you next time.